There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A multiverse as vast as eternity, as timeless as the Infinity Gems. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, the Church of Failure, your late and gay host, if you will. With me, as always, my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I smoked way too many cigars today, though, so if my voice is worse than usual, that's part of it.
That'll happen. I mean, you'll just robot out when your voice cracks anyway, so it's fine. Nobody will notice.
Hey, I've been having pretty good connection lately.
Don't jinx it. Don't fucking jinx it. Anyway, with us today in the digital studio, as it has been dubbed, is the one and only Captain Weeb from Chat fame. How you doing today, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, I've been better, but it costs more. But, I can't complain. I went and played a little Magic the Gathering today. Let my nerd hang out. And played second. Didn't do too terribly.
Oh, nice.
Why the show is late? Because I was indulging in some recreational activity that was not streaming. But, I do apologize for the tardiness. I did not expect the fourth round to happen, but we were tied with first place, and, we had to sort that out so that we could lose heavily. Nobody had handed us an L, so we needed one. But anyway,
Now, do you bet money on these games and stuff? Make it more interesting?
No. But little side lore, and I know this isn't the Gospel of Magic the Gathering, so I'll keep it short. But back in the day, there used to be a mechanic in the game called ante, and that was when you would flip over the top card of your deck before you started playing, and you would put that into the winner's pot, so to speak. So there were some really, really bad trades that happened. Like, some people won games and got nothing but a land, and other people won games and got cards that are now worth thousands of dollars. So
That'd be kind of bad if the first Annie is a Black Lotus. You're like, oh well, there's a crap ton of money.
Right. Well, back in the day, it was like $20 when ante was still a thing. They got rid of it when it became an officially sanctioned game and whatnot. Church does not play white TCGs. Actually, I was playing black and white tonight, so playing black and white knights, if you will. It worked out for me. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about manga and their effect on comics, the fan bases, how they overlap, how they separate, things of that nature. And one thing that I was curious about that we might try and get into a little speculation on is why more women are drawn to manga rather than comics, and maybe what can comics do. But
I was gonna say those crazy anime chicks.
Oh yeah, there's an abundance of crazy anime chicks, but that's not.
I dated one. They're kind of fun, but they are a bit strange.
It comes from the territory.
Let's see here. Danielle Griffin, welcome to the chat. Novel Bro, thanks for showing up as always. Nox Malficia? I don't know. Hail Church. Captain Weeb, how's it going? You're here. But yeah, Pogs and Marbles.
I hope so.
Reference with Eggwood White Drug Rant. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I no comment on the White Drug Rant. Or my drug use. That's private. Don't dox my drug use.
What's up, Matt Christie? How you doing, man?
Matt Christie in the chat. How's it going, buddy? Anyway, We are here to talk about manga, and Ayrton and I know very little about manga. I've read a couple, and I've seen a few animes, but cartoon showed up. No, I'm not a big anime. I am not an anime. I am not a manga. Yeah, I tell people just to call me Church. I don't want to be failure. There is a failure. I'm just his humble Church. But anyway, no, I don't know a lot about manga. I know that it's read right to left, which is backwards. And when I read it, it's a little bit of a disconnect between reading that and a normal comic book, just for the simple fact that the word bubbles are set up right to left as well. Whereas in a comic book, it's left to right, top to bottom, like usual. So the paneling and the word bubbles are flip-flopped as well. So that's a little bit of a disconnect. But once you get past that, I mean, there's really not a lot of stylistic difference in the way that a comic book and a manga are laid out. Would you agree, Weeb?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's got the panel set up, the word bubbles. I mean, other than the way you read it, it feels very similar. I'm not really. I never could really get into comics. I felt bad for coming on your show and not getting some, so I bought a bunch of comics today.
Well, that is the prerequisite for being on the show. You have to own a few comic books. But
I don't know if
I'm
they're
kidding.
any good, but Well,
what'd you pick up? We can discuss that for a moment.
Let's see. I just had them.
Weeb's going to come out. Well, I got an Action Comics #1, an Amazing Fantasy 15, a Detective number 27,
and an AOC new party. Who dis?
That's right.
Where?
Front Punch Man.
I know. Here they are. I picked up the Mighty Thor versus the Mighty Thor.
Okay.
I got just the Mighty Thor: The Final Gauntlet.
Okay.
I literally just grabbed a handful from this garage sale, and I'm like, I'm just going to get these.
Oh,
seems good.
And then I got some Sailor Moon comics.
Hey, there you go. I actually I have some of the original Power Rangers comics from the '90s, and those things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, those things, man, they are worse than the show. No, if you don't have nostalgia,
the comics cuts out.
yeah, if you don't have nostalgia for the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, do not buy the first run of comic books. The new stuff that's being put out by IDW is fantastic, but the old stuff is just garbage. But in preparation for the show, I didn't ask Ayrton to read anything. I sent him the link to a web application where you can completely and totally legitimately read manga. Because we do not support pirating on this stream. But I brushed up. That's correct. We'll Talk Like a Pirate Day was like a week ago, wasn't it?
Was it?
I think it was last Friday.
Huh.
I missed it. Normally, I used to, back in the day when I used an actual Facebook, I would change my language to pirate. And now I just think Facebook is terrible and use it to keep up with pictures of my kids. But no, I brushed up on Hellsing, and I've read a few others in my day. I've been meaning to get around to reading Berserk, but my local bookstore doesn't have any in stock, and I guess that's probably a testament to how good Berserk is, because they have an extensive manga collection, and that's the first thing that I was going to make mention of. Looking at comic books and trade paperbacks on a bookshelf at a bookstore, and looking at manga on the bookshelves of a bookstore, manga is much more appealing because of the uniformity of the series, the thicker tabloid style book binding, so to speak. It looks better on a shelf. I mean, you can get something like Kirkman's Walking Dead and front face those things, and occasionally you get covers that link together and stuff like that. But when it's just trade paperbacks, just all on a shelf, it's not very appealing. So that's the first thing that I noticed, is that if you have no idea what a comic book is, and you're walking into a bookstore, the manga section is much more appealing visually than the comic book section. And I think that has a lot to do with the way that normies can get into it easier and quicker, because you can see, okay, well, there's 18 books in this series, and, I'm going to buy one.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Captain, but there's one series, I think my bass player was telling me, when you line them all up in order, like it makes like one long picture. Is that true?
There's a lot of series like that.
Yeah, a lot of them do that.
Okay.
I wouldn't know just based on that, because there's more manga than I can even fathom.
Yeah, I just remember him telling or showing it to me. I don't know if it was it might have been like One Piece or like Dragon Ball or something like that. I know he reads those.
Mrs. Church in the chat says there are American mangas printed left or right. Yeah, I just consider those tabloid-sized comics, honestly. Like, manga really has a specific style, and I just don't know that Americans have the stylistic ability or the non-cocaine fueled adamancy to pump our work that quickly. Like, if you gave an American comic team an ongoing manga series, and it would take them like 8.5 years to get one volume of 100 and something pages out. But no, I mean,
Cyber Frog was how many pages, and it took him how long to release it?
Look, we're not judging Ethan Van Sciver. We did that on the Cyber Frog.
No. I couldn't resist.
So apparently what she was referencing is I Love Halloween by Benjamin Roman and Keith Giffen. We're actually going to be covering Keith Giffen at a certain point, Ayrton, so prepare yourself, because he's done comic books, he's done manga, and he's done just about everything. But these are the ones she just handed me are I Love Halloween. And I knew we had these, but I had never read them. But these are American-style mangas. They read left or right, just like normal comics do. But just flipping through it, I'm not seeing a lot of difference stylistically than I see in regular manga, except for the idea that I think Tokyo Pop is out of business completely, right?
I don't remember. I'm not sure, honestly.
Oh, Ayrton, you're fired, buddy.
What the hell, Matt? What did I do now?
No, Tokyo Pop's still going.
Is it? I thought
it's still going strong.
Okay, I don't know why, but for some reason I thought they were done. And just to clear the air, we'll go through and we'll clear out the mods of people that don't show up very often anymore. But I like to keep the people that show up regularly as mods, because we have 231 subscribers, and I think we're still under 50 wrenches. So that's kind of the judge of it. If you don't show up in the chat, you don't get a wrench. So if we ever actually blow up and get 100 people in the chat, the people that I trust and have been here the longest are going to have... Oh no, he's fired, Matt Christie. He's done. Don't go anywhere. I mean, you're not free to go. You're fired.
I'm just fired. Yeah.
It's like one of those, you're fired, but stay till the end of the show.
Yeah.
Right, and be here for the next one.
Right.
It means nothing anymore. I fired him every episode for like our first 40 episodes. It was great. But
everybody's got to have a shtick.
That's right. Well, yours is bad audio. Mine's firing you and boomering up everything, being late and gay. I feel like I've got it worse than you do, so just accept it. but in thumbing through those old Hellsing books and just going through this I Love Halloween series that my wife has the first 3 issues of, one thing that I noticed that kind of separates comics from manga is a lot of manga. I don't think I've ever seen a fully colored manga. Does that actually exist, Weeb, or are they all pretty much primarily black and white?
Oh, there's a few that are. I say a few, but there's like, but yeah, they do colored. To my knowledge, I read a lot of mine online now.
Okay.
So they're all of them are black and white, but I've seen some that are colored.
Well,
It's a lot cheaper just to have it black and white, though. But
well,
I'm pretty sure.
I figured it was cheaper on printing and probably faster in production because you don't have to send inked pages to a colorer.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be one of the reasons that you can get a 180-page tabloid-sized comic book out, or not tabloid. What am I thinking of? Tabloid is 11 by 17. What am I thinking of? It's there's a certain word for that print size. Because you get them at the grocery store. Archie Comics prints a book of reprints at that size that you can pick up at the grocery store right at checkout.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's off topic. So another key difference that you notice from manga from comics is your average comic book is about 22 pages and comes out at least once a month, if not twice a month. I don't think I've ever read a manga that was under 100 pages. And I'm sure there may be some out there, but it seems like the norm is 100 plus pages.
Yeah, I honestly can't think of many that are really that large in size. They usually try to keep them small so they can get them out quicker. I know like a lot of them come out like, at least in my the ones I read. The other one I read the other day was, I think it was only like 50 pages. It was really small, but they come out like every 2 weeks, so it's
okay. And see, that's why I wanted to have somebody that actually knew what the fuck they were talking about on the stream, because my limited experience is and I asked this question to the Weeb section of Racket's Discord earlier, and a lot of them were like, the main shift to Americans reading manga happened like a decade ago when it became more available because of like Books a Millions and Barnes and Nobles.
Oh yeah. I remember I'd have to like go on special sites just to get like the translations, but now you can just walk in the like BAM and it's like, oh, here's 80 different series. Great.
Yeah. Right. And if we don't have the certain volume you're looking for, just come back in a week and we'll have it for you.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, we don't have this. Yeah, just give us a couple of days. Well, we can get it ordered for you.
Right.
But now you got stuff like Amazon, other places where it's like if you can't find something, you can find it just about everything there.
Now, are they released in Japan like how we get them here, or do they release them more in like a issue? Because I know they're in like when you're reading through them, there's like chapters as you're going through. Like, do they release like chapters at a time over there and just release it here like per volume, or do they just release just one volume at a time over there? Do you know?
I know like with light novels, a book will come out in Japan and then like maybe 4 or 5 months later it'll be translated and then sent over to North American markets. That's I read a lot of more light novels than I do manga, honestly. But
so what is a night novel?
A light novel is just a book. I mean, it's not like it. They're pretty much just a lot of mangas are actually just regular books, and then they just take them and then they just pretty much throw them to the comics lens and just turn the stories into stuff you can actually see the action go on.
Right.
Like my favorite one right now is it's Overlord, and that's what they did. They came out as a web novel, then a light novel, and then they're like, oh well, let's make a manga and an anime just to get more people into it.
That's very similar to the way that pulp novels worked here. Because back in the 30s and 40s, before comic books actually blew up and were selling like millions of units, a week, you would get these what they called dime pulp novels, and the reason they called them pulp is because that's the brand of paper they were printed on, just this grimy pulp paper that tore and ripped out and just was not good quality. And sometimes they were as few as 30 or 40 pages, and sometimes they were as, hefty as like 100, 200 pages. But it was stuff like the Shadow, the Spider, a lot of these characters that modern comic characters are based off of, but they were just in word formats. You might have an illustration at the beginning of a chapter or something like that, but for the most part, it was just all it was all verbiage, and then they'd be adapted into a comic book or a radio show, and maybe even sometimes like the shorts played before movies would back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially the same market as what comic books follow, except nowadays all of those industries are separate and they're not working together. I mean, you still get novel adaptations of movies and comic adaptations of movies. Usually they're terrible. So,
oh yeah, I mean, like the Star Wars novelizations, like for like not the new trilogy, but like episodes 1, 2, and 3, like for the episode 3, that novelization was a lot better than the movie, because they could pack so much more into it. I'm like, okay, this actually doesn't seem like a half-assed money grab.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I heard somebody do like a reading of the fight from episode 3 with like Palpatine kills all those Jedi when they come to arrest him, and like, holy shit, like he cuts one of the, like it talks about him cutting one of their heads off and like it rolling across the floor. Like, come on, George, why didn't you put this in the movie? Would have been so much better.
Oh yeah, just jazz it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, the original Star Wars trilogy was meant to be an all-ages thing, and then the novelizations were like, kids can't read. So, when you say the light novels, those are converted into like mangas and anime, so that practice still goes on in Japan to this day.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of the most popular ones started off either as a light novel or a manga.
Okay.
More in my experience, I've seen a lot more light novels turned into other media than manga. I could be wrong, but at least from what I've experienced, it's been that way.
So
usually,
go ahead. No, after you.
They a lot of times they'll wait until they're like maybe like 3 or 4 books deep in a light novel before they're like, let's just change the medium up. Because that's how they measure whether or not they should keep printing stuff or making shows, that the sales of the manga and the light novels.
Right.
So you could have a really successful show, but they don't sell the paper material. So they're like, well, obviously it's there's no reason to keep making it if it's this. So we'll just cut it off here. And
yeah,
I can't tell you how much hair I've lost just because of that. It's like, oh, this is a great season. No, the book didn't sell well in Japan, so we're not getting a season 2.
Yeah, and let's see. So he's basically a slave now. Sweet. They only have 3 books. Best recent anime is Genocidal Organ. Like, holy fuck. I'm gonna take your word on that one. I took someone's word on Bible Black too, so I feel like I'm doing my due diligence and not becoming more degenerate than I already am. Some manga weeklies could be compared to comic monthlies in terms of a workload, etc. Yeah, those guys. That's one thing that I do know is that these guys pump out artwork because it's a pretty steady release schedule on these things, from what I understand. Even the bigger ones. So, I mean, these guys are probably on the same diet that American cartoonists used to be, of just, cigarettes, coffee, and cocaine.
Which diet for anyone.
Right.
Yeah. You got your 4 basic food groups there.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I survive off of, that and scotch. But
Yeah.
now,
Which, by the way, Sam Adams Oktoberfest is now out. Just throwing it out there.
you know, that's just pumpkin spice lattes for men, right?
I mean, it might be, but it's delicious, so I don't care.
I've never really been into like beer or any seasonal stuff like that. I just stick to like Jack or Jaeger, and it's never done me wrong.
Once you find what works for you,
it's
man,
not
never
me
change it. Yeah, once you find what works for you,
Right.
never change it. I don't drink clear alcohol anymore for that very reason. Or rum.
Yeah, I think after my 20s, I'm like, all right, anything that's clear, I'm just gonna end up on a couch. Not even my couch. I'm just gonna stay away from it.
Yeah.
Just
No,
somebody's couch.
No, you basically just
Might be 4 states over.
yeah, you basically just have to take the Ron Swanson approach. Clear alcohols are for rich women on diets. Men drink scotch.
I still like me a good vodka and a screwdriver for like breakfast every now and then.
Well, Bloody Marys
That's
don't
a good
count.
breakfast drink.
Yeah, Bloody Marys don't count.
Bloody Marys are barely a drink. It's just like a liquid salad in a cup.
Right. And then they put all the food on top of it. So you're really ordering it for the cheap food.
That's a win-win.
Yeah, the place that I go to, you get like 2 chicken wings, a side of fries, a little mini slider, a couple of onion rings. I mean, it's basically a party platter on top of an alcoholic beverage. How can you go wrong there?
Oh man,
Exactly.
now I'm hungry.
Yeah, we do that. We also make people want to drink. So
Right. So,
I completely forgot where we were at discussing this. By the way,
well, we're just kind of talking about the comparison and contrast right now. Like, for the most part, the two mediums are very similar between manga and comics.
I do have one question. So I did watch like some animes growing up, like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, obviously. You know, kind of the normie popular ones. How do those actually compare, like adaptation wise? Because as comic fans, we until like the Marvel Studios, we never got good like those like adaptations of anything that we like.
There's more good than bad, but when they're bad, they are just god awful. Like I can usually just kind of just get like a little baked, and I'm like, all right, they're bad. Maybe I'll find some humor in it, and then maybe like 2 episodes in, it's like, oh, well, that's time I'm never going to get back, and we can't erase memories yet.
Well, that's what the liquor's for. Yeah, because I know what's that? Attack on Titan. That's the real popular one out right now, right?
Yeah, that's a really popular one. I've never read it. I watched like the first season, and then I'm like, I've got so much backlog on my anime like list. I'm not going to invest time into this right now. Wait till it all comes out and just binge it over a weekend.
Yeah,
right.
It's
Attack on Titan looks cool. I like the premise of it a lot. I just
if we
really funny thing about that one is.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh no, just talk over me. It's cool.
He does it.
They accused Attack on Titan of being anti-Semitic. I was reading something about it. Like, there's some sort of characters that are controlling things behind the scenes that are pretty much Jews, and it's they took a little heat for that, but I'm pretty sure Japan just doesn't care.
I mean, why would they?
Oy vey, Goyim.
I would put money down that Novel Bro likes that anime then.
I was actually going to say that at one point we should make a point of reviewing Attack on Titan the anime, and you should feel free to join us for that if you ever get freed up to read at a volume at the time.
Yeah, I'd be willing to read a couple of at least the first couple of volumes and then watch the anime adaptation to see how it holds up.
We did that something similar with the Lock and Key series with the Dead Man's Tome, because they were very much on. They're very much a horror podcast, and Lock and Key is probably my favorite horror comic. So I was like, you guys should read this because it's great horror in comic form, and that's totally my genre. But we covered all 7 volumes.
Oh,
I think Novel Bro is I think Novel Bro is confirming his anime prowess here. I don't know what any of these things mean. Vinland Saga is showing great promise, though, despite the Orphans Naruto running. The Marlian fascist, Elon scum. I don't know what any of that means. I'm probably going to get banned for it.
Vinland Saga is like a Viking kind of anime kind of series.
Okay.
I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list of things to get caught up for this season, but just the very few things I saw, I'm like, okay, this is definitely up my alley.
That sounds up my alley. I'll have to check that out.
Well, we have confirmation that Novel Bro says Attack on Titan is fucking awesome. So, and I will admit, I was first introduced to Hellsing via the anime. There are very few animes that I've seen. Dragon Ball Z. Because I like the 80s Guyver movies so much, I went and seeked out the Guyver anime. Because as soon as I realized that there was more Guyver to be ingested, I was like, I have to see it. And it was decent. I mean, I think the movies were better, but that's just me. I think I saw Gundam Wing.
That's a goodie.
Yeah, once it was dubbed, because it was only once that a buddy of mine told me that I had to watch the Slayers subtitled over dubbed, and I would enjoy it more. Because we used to go and you ever play a game called Dynasty Warriors, Weeb?
A long time ago.
Okay,
yeah, I have played it.
When Dynasty Warriors 3 came out for the PlayStation 2, he and I, after school, pretty much every day, would play Dynasty Warriors. And because, we were poor, not tech-savvy kids, we would have to go to one another's houses to do this. And one day I'm at his house, and there's a story at the end of this that I'm going to have to tell that's fucking hilarious, at least to me. But one day while I'm at his house, he's talking about anime, and he's got this big cat girl fetish, and I think he's a fucking weirdo, but, friends are hard to come by. You keep it in fine.
Culture.
And he's like, okay, you don't know anything about anime, and you don't get any of these references that I'm making, so here, take this home and watch it. And he hands me The Slayers Volume 1, or Season 1. And I'm looking at it, and, there's the big titty anime girl on the front, and there's, the main character, and I have no idea what the hell's going on, but I take it home and I'll watch it. And it's where I learn the only Japanese that I know, and I probably butcher every time I say it, but sorry, wa hemetsu desu. It's a secret. But I watched.
If you ever go to Japan, that's all you're going to say to people when they ask you questions or say something to you.
Yes.
Just only respond with that the entire time you're there.
Correct.
If you really want to impress people in Japan, just say Daisuke Chinchin.
I see
Go
Chinchin.
far.
Are you going to tell us what that means? Because I'm not sure if I'm going to go to Japan and say that just on your word.
Well, Chinchin is dick, and
Okay.
Daisuke is love.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or
Does the inflection make it a question, or?
you leave it up to interpretation. Maybe it might be a question, it might be an offer. It gets the curiosity piqued. They're like,
There you go.
Well, this white guy is saying something completely ridiculous. Let's see what he's about.
I think he has an Asian tattoo on his arm. What does that say? Bukake.
Oh, that it says I'm an idiot. Oh, all right. I'm gonna have fun with this guy.
Yep. I'm gonna get him drunk and take him to a panty vending machine. It's gonna be great.
A buddy of mine got a long time ago got a really large Chinese character tattooed. That the guy said, "Oh, this means peace and love and all this stuff," and it just meant I eat dog shit.
Nice.
And he was showing it around, and the girl I was dating at the time was Chinese, and she goes, "Yeah, that's a great tattoo."
See, I always just assume they say something like chicken noodle soup.
One funny thing is, like, we horribly butcher, like Asian characters, and then they horribly butcher English. Beauty of exchange.
Right. I love seeing those, we have the, T-shirts and stuff over here that have the stuff on them. Then I'll have like T-shirts over there, like in English lettering that say just like random shit that makes no sense, like dog muffins or something.
If you guys ever want a really good anime to watch, like a really good series that from start to beginning you're riveted, it's Code Geass.
Okay.
It's just like the basic thing of it is this kid kind of one day gets like this alien power where he can command people to do anything if he looks them in the eye, and it follows his story along there. But it's anymore it might spoil it, but it's 2 seasons, fantastic anime. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Oh well, I'm going to get you to open up a WordPad and just any of your recommendations, write them down and send them to me in a DM later.
Yeah, we'll do. I've got over 500 anime series under my belt, so I mean, I got just about every genre. I've got at least 1 or 2 really goodies.
Okay, and that is another thing that I kind of wanted to get into. Back on the manga train, real quick. Is there, because from what I can tell, like, of course there are different genres of manga, just like there are different genres of comic books and things of that nature, but is there something about the way that the manga is, I don't know, plotted or written or something of that nature that you think kind of coalesces, or are there series out there? Because, with Dragon Ball Z, with pretty much anything I've seen, there's, how do you say, there's a intensity, so to speak, in action. There's combat, there's action scenes, there are fight scenes, stuff like that. And there are prominent female and male characters, like even in Dragon Ball Z and even in, the Slayers. Like in the Slayers, your females were your main characters. In Dragon Ball Z, you had female main characters in Android 17. Was it 18? Android 18. And,
I mean, 17 kind of looks like a girl, so I mean...
Well, But, in Hellsing, you've got prominent female characters. So, is it that consistent, or are there just completely left field animes that are just misogynistic as shit, or manga, excuse me, that are just misogynistic as shit and treat women like crap? Or are there, things where it's extremely male dominated, or is it pretty even over there as far as the culture goes and the way they design these books and the way they write their characters?
From what I've seen, it's been pretty even. That's the one thing I do like more about manga than I do modern comics, is that when they write like a strong female character, it doesn't feel like pandering. Right. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're gonna write it in a way where it's like a Mary Sue. It happens, but when you read a strong female character in a manga, you're like, I can genuinely believe and like this character. It's not like, oh, we're gonna make Miss Marvel a wheelchair-bound, space-traveling transsexual Muslim. I mean, there's definitely genre out there where they'll write a character like that, but that's the market that buys it. When they establish their genre and their market, a lot of times they stay pretty loyal and faithful to to their target audience. They're not just going to throw, oh, we're going to have a black character because we want to get this market. It's like, no, we know who our readers are. We know what they're going to buy. If we do something crazy, we might not get another book. So let's keep it. Let's go in new directions, but keep it on the same kind of pathway.
Yeah, we like getting a paycheck, so let's not fuck this up for ourselves.
Yeah. It's like we don't care if the Americans won't read it, so long as it sells here in Japan. Fuck them.
Right.
Now, do you think maybe more of a cultural thing versus over here where they just kowtow to whoever screams the loudest, or maybe because they're more like homogenized? There's doesn't seem to be, from the outside as much division over in Japan as there is here. Do you think that might play a role in that?
I definitely do think it's like a more of a culture thing. At least over here in America, it's whatever group is screaming and crying the most, that's what they'll pander to. But a lot of, at least from my experience, a lot of Japanese don't really freak out too much about it. Like, obviously, if they take a completely wrong direction, they'll go bananas. But it's not like, I don't know, it's not that kind of stratifying over there.
Right.
Well, that's one thing that kind of interests me is that over there, because in most of Asia, it seems that the governments are very, very tightly locked on their control of the populace.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to having a loud voice that influences your politics or whatever, that just doesn't happen over there. So,
well, it's more of like a respect thing kind of over there. Like they don't, like, at least they don't like to step on other people's toes as much as they don't want to. I mean, that didn't apply to 1930s Japan. They like to step on everyone's toes. But at least in like modern, they're like, we don't want to really upset people. We'll try to be as respectful as possible. If we don't like something, they generally will keep it to themselves.
right.
And I think that's just like a historical perspective too, is especially in places like China and all that. It's like, well, if we speak out, we get in trouble. So let's just not speak out. Let's just go our own flow. And if something really gets in our way, that's when we'll speak up. But we're not going to go out of our way to do so.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I think is much different here, because it feels like that if a vocal minority says something in regards to a comic book, and there's also what you call the SJW, infestation, quote unquote. I don't know if you would call it that, but the infestation of social justice in comics that pushed a Muslim Miss Marvel to the forefront, that replaced Iron Man briefly with a black female, that decided to take Thor's hammer and give it to a woman, that decided that Captain America had to be black now, and he had to be a member of Antifa for whatever reason.
Are you serious? That they did that to Cap?
Oh yeah, Sam Wilson's Captain America. Yeah, Sam Wilson's Captain America just as much as Steve Rogers is now.
I remember when they made not Captain Iron Man, like that black teenage girl, and I'm like,
Williams, yeah, Ironheart.
I can't do it. Like, I mean, I can get Jane Foster as Thor because you got a really hot looking female Thor out of it.
And Jane Foster has a history in the Thor lore, so she would have experience understanding what being worthy meant.
And it wouldn't. I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it wouldn't be the first time that Thor's lost his hammer. So it's not like.
No, and at one point in the 90s, Marvel vs. DC, Thor lost his hammer in a fight with Shazam during the Marvel vs. DC Amalgam series, and Wonder Woman picked it up.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was badass. I mean, I've got to say she was probably the most powerful character in either universe at that time. And I would read the shit out of that story if Marvel and DC got together again and called it Wonder Woman, the Mighty Thor, something like that. But
I would read that. I would actually pick that up.
But as far as just Marvel shifting titles to other people, I mean, Captain Marvel was an alien man, and then a black woman, and then it became Carol Danvers, who was Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was such an insignificant character back in the 90s that the animated series X-Men retconned her to have basically been in a coma for a decade because Rogue stole her powers permanently. I don't understand why that's the character that you hang your hat on and you relaunch like 7 or 8 times over the course of a decade to attempt to ship her as the face of the Marvel Universe.
I'm just disappointed we didn't get a Jubilee comic. Jubilee was great.
Jubilee was just a discount Dazzler.
I mean, it was when in that comic, like not that comic, in that show, whenever Jubilee would shoot fireworks out of her fingers, I'm like, oh, she's trying so hard.
check out X-Men '92. She was very prominently featured in that. There's a comic series and a webcomic series called X-Men '92. She was a prominent figure in those. And then you got, what was it, Generation X that Jubilee was a very big part of. So she got a little bit of limelight. Not as much as you would think that she deserved, but, they saw what happened when they gave Dazzler a book back in the 80s, and that concept of a character, it just doesn't sell well to a main audience. Like, you've got to group her together and make men buy it too. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to insult you by saying that, but I'm saying, like, you've got to get a lot of men to want to buy this comic book, and most men aren't going to buy a comic book centered around a female. Like, that's just the way it goes.
It depends on the character.
It depends on what she's wearing on the cover. At least I'm a degenerate, so if you got a hot looking girl on the cover, even if it's crap, I'll buy it for the wall. Like,
I mean, yeah, I assume that all weebs are degenerates, and I accept that.
All men are a little degenerate.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm fully degenerate, and I'm 100% okay with that at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Now, this does kind of segue into what we brought up at the beginning, the disproportionate female attraction to manga versus comic book, like Western comic books.
Now, I had a question about that.
What do you think is behind that?
Before you answer that, let me preface by asking this question: is it because that there are certain subsections of manga and anime that are considered like yuri and yaoi, and they're like degenerate, but like gay degenerate? Like predominantly females watch gay porn.
I mean, like you have a the seinen genre, which is literally written for girls. Like it's like it's with their interests in mind, and a lot of it's BL, boy love. That's a lot.
You have abbreviations for this shit?
Oh yeah. It's a lot easier to say just she likes to buy BL than saying she likes to read gay manga. Like really, it little less palatable in public conversation.
Fair enough. I'll give you that one.
And
but yeah, sorry.
No, I just don't like dead air. So if there's a pause, I start talking again. So just talk over me. It's fine. I wasn't joking.
With a lot of female manga though, they like kind of like how with like a Dragon Ball and One Piece and a lot of shonen manga, we're just focused on a lot of action, like a lot of like cool as shit, like bang bang explosion kind of like reading, or where it's action after action after action or something like that. They really like to focus on on that. I don't really read a lot of them, but I mean, obviously my avatar is Sailor Moon, so
Yeah.
that's a very popular girl manga, girl TV show that it's broadly appealing to both sexes, and that's the one thing that I think really appeals it into for women. It's like, okay, well they're not making it like, oh, this is blank, but for women this is something I can get behind. It's not, oh, we're gonna remake Superman, give him tits, and try to sell it out to a female audience kind of deal. It's like, oh, this was written with women in mind first and foremost, not just like an afterthought to get money.
Right.
I could be wrong, but
well, I would go so far as to say that that's probably right on point, just for the simple fact that the comics industry has failed miserably at capturing a female market. They pulled stunts like trying to push, mainly female characters, which I don't think there's a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is what I call like the coattail riding aspect of it. If you don't think that a female character can stand on her own legs without wearing the title or the name of a male character, and there are obviously exceptions, like Jessica Cruz, Green Lantern. Green Lantern is a military institution for the sake of argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, whoever enlists in the Green Lantern Corps is a Green Lantern. There can be aliens, there could be a fucking squirrel, there can be a planet, there can be black people, white people, purple people, women, men, androgynous, whatever. So, it's not as...
Yeah, even women.
Shut up, Aaron. But, it's not as hard to suspend your disbelief on the idea of a female Green Lantern, because it makes sense that, eventually Hal Jordan's going to need to retire or get killed in action. But when you take and you even giving Jane Foster the Hammer of Thor, I mean, Thor is a name, not a title. You have the power of Thor when you hold his hammer. You're not Thor. You feel me?
Like what they could have done is kind of like what they did with Beta Ray Bill. I mean, he's got his own hammer. He's got the powers of Thor. You could make a comic line off of that instead of saying, "Oh, you're literally now Thor. Thor's just going to do his own thing." Make a comic where Jane Foster gets her own hammer. That would I think that'd be a little bit more palatable than just saying, "Oh no, Thor's now a woman. Get over it."
Well, back in the day, the Incredible Hulk was an ongoing series, and during the series, Hulk got sent to Sakaar, and we covered that book called, Planet Hulk, and then what was it? World Breaker Hulk. Yeah, World War Hulk. But during the time that the Incredible Hulk was off planet, Hercules took his place. And they even did an homage to an old school Hulk cover when Hercules took his place. They just switched the series, and it wasn't the Incredible Hulk. They had the Incredible Hulk on the cover, and they spray painted out the word Hulk and wrote Herc over it. So it became,
I like that.
Yeah, it became the Incredible Hercules. Why can't it be the Mighty Jane Foster? Or, give Sif the fucking hammer, the Mighty Sif. Why do you have to give them the name to sell the brand on the back of an established character?
I can't stand that personally. Like it's just like, just make a new character or make a new thing. Don't take something, spray paint it a different color and say, oh, just stop. Like,
right.
I don't. That's one thing that I never really could get in the comics for. Was a lot of times I'd read something, like I'd read like a newsline like, oh, Steve Rogers is now black. I'm like, well, okay, well, even if I wanted to pick it up now, that just knowing that pisses me off. It's not that he's black; it's just make a new character.
Well,
like you don't need to try to.
To be fair on that one, Steve Rogers got old and basically died for a little while. and then Sam the Falcon was given the mantle of Captain America. Which, first and foremost, if you know Captain America lore, the Winter Soldier, if he's still alive, becomes Captain America. That's the line. However, Sam Wilson is a close second, so you give him that. But when Sam Wilson keeps his wings and picks up the shield and becomes Captain America, he shouldn't be Captain America. Sam Wilson should be the fucking American Eagle.
No, I see. I don't know. Like, personally, I just don't like if you're gonna make him Captain America, your previous shtick is gone, dude. You gotta pick up Cap's shield, put on the crazy blue spandex, and go bananas.
Right. Or if you keep your wings, you don't miss the marketing opportunity to have the fucking American Eagle. Am I right?
You'd be stupid not to take that branding opportunity, because that'd be great. You're like, you know what? I'm picking up the torch for Captain America, being ultra American. I'm the American Eagle now.
Yeah.
Which, because conceptually, the wings and the shield looks pretty badass.
Yeah,
right.
But calling him, and the suit was cool. It was like a white and blue like flight suit type looking thing, and it looked really cool. But calling him Captain America, same thing. Like, yeah, definitely needed to be called the American Eagle.
But, I mean, that's just why Marvel needs to hire me and stop hiring social justice warriors. But, what are you going to do?
It's not even just... I think it started off in comics, but now it's infecting, like, my other hobbies, like Warhammer 40K. Like, SJWs are trying to say, oh, we need female Space Marines, and we need female this, and it's like, no, we already have organizations in place for guys who want to collect those armies. Like, you don't need to make everything chickified, because you guys don't spend the hundreds of dollars like a certain Weeb does on models that he never gets a chance to play with.
Wait. Are they assuming my Space Marine's gender?
But the one thing that you really don't get this problem with is manga. That's the nice part about it. It's like you don't feel like they're just making female Thor just to try to get a new market into the Thor book. It's like, no, here's something for you. We're not trying to jock the fans in two separate directions. Oh, I'm gonna pick up two guys skate on ice or whatever bullshit. That's not a real thing, but it's like, oh, okay.
I totally thought it was.
Well, there's Yuri on Ice, which is literally gay ice skating.
So ice skating?
Even gayer ice skating. But you know what you're getting into. It's not, and sorry to go off on a tangent, but the one thing that I like about manga more than comics is, if I want to start from a beginning of a story, I don't need to there's like 3 or 4 different reboots. Like, here's Superman, but 90s Superman, he's extreme Superman. It's like, I can pick up the first novel of a manga, read the whole thing, and it's not super hard to find or super expensive if I want to get the authentic book from first printing to newest printing.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head there, and we've talked about this numerous times. Superman and Batman at this point are 80 years old.
Yeah.
There's no way to read everything about either of those characters if you wanted to jump into it like nowadays. It would be
not
impossible.
true. That's not true. There's no way to read everything about those characters and have a family or a life or friends or hobbies or a job.
Yeah. Okay, no practical way to do it.
Okay.
But
But
seriously, where do you start with that? Do you go all the way to the beginning?
like one of the most prominent animes that I mentioned when I was talking about it earlier was the Slayers. I think I saw like 4 seasons of that, and I'm sure from what I just saw that it started out as a light novel and it became a manga, and it followed the progression that we've laid out. But I don't ever see anyone in Japan taking that story and going, you know what? Lena needs to be a man. this is just not inclusive enough. We've got the small-breasted main character and the big titty anime chick in here, but we're just not representing men well enough. So we've got to change Lena to a man. And I don't think I would have enjoyed the series any more or less if it was a man, but I had no problem with it being two females as the main protagonist.
A really good example of making a female version of a story is there's this light novel series which turned into a manga called Dan Machi, where the main character in the main continuity is this 14-year-old boy who's the grandson of Zeus. But there's a female character who is very high level, super strong, that the main character has a crush on. And they saw the success of the first book, so they actually made a whole different storyline called, it's like Sword or Oratoria, which is focused on her. The main character comes in for some cool segues, but it's two distinct series in the same universe, and it doesn't feel like, they're just making her popular. No, it's like, no, this is her story. I can read this independently and read that independently, but still know what goes on each. It's a very well done kind of series like that, and it's a good way for women to get into a lot of things if they do it like that, where it's the same universe as the story that guys like to read most, but it piques your it gets your toe in the water. You feel like, oh, this is chick that gets super strong. I like this. Let's check out the other books. See if I like that too, and then now you have a fan of two series.
Right. Well, it's like I was saying, with comic books, they've tried every trick under the sun to capture the female readership. However, it always kind of falls flat because they're either not committed. Like, if you're going to make the ballsy move to turn Tony Stark into a black girl, so to speak, and not Tony Stark, obviously it wasn't Tony Stark, it was Riri Williams, and she wasn't Iron Man, she was Ironheart. But she was a black girl that stole the technology. Well, and
I'm not kidding.
No, he's not wrong.
Oh,
she was a thief and she stole the technology from Stark Enterprises. But you don't back that comic book up by creating a second Iron Man book called The Infamous Iron Man and letting Dr. Doom also be Iron Man. You either go all in and you put all your chips on the table and say, you know what? Iron Man's going to be the black girl now. Or you say, you know what? Iron Man's just going to be Iron Man, and we're going to have Pepper Potts give Riri Williams the triage armor.
So you're telling me Dr. Doom was Iron Man?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, this is
the dumbfounded. This could be the liquor, but I've got the most dumbfounded. As you guys are talking about this shit, I'm like, I'm glad I don't follow this too much, or because I'd have too much of a fun time shit posting about it.
Okay. Well, this is kind of my specialty. So this was right after 2015 Secret Wars event, right? So we're at like February in 2016. Secret Wars number 9 comes out, and as Reed Richards and the Future Foundation and Molecule Man and the Fantastic Four are off in the Netherverse rebuilding the multiverse or whatever, one of the corrections, quote unquote, that Reed Richards chooses to make in the mainstream 616 Marvel Universe is that he's going to fix Victor Von Doom's face. Okay? So the final panels of Secret Wars number 9, spoiler alert, are hey, how's it going, Denny? Nice to see you here, buddy.
Hey, Denny.
But one of the main fortes of Secret Wars 2015 and the final panels of issue 9, the last book in the series, the main series, is Victor Von Doom pulling his mask off, realizing his face is no longer scarred, and laughing, right? So he loses the Doom armor completely at that point, and he becomes, just kind of a regular guy. He's still an asshole, but he's trying to go on a redemption arc, so to speak, for the time being. So when Tony Stark dies, he's like, well, there has to be an Iron Man, and he fashions a Doom/Iron Man armor.
That sounds awesome as hell.
It is.
Like,
it is much better than Ironheart. But it goes to my...
was one of my favorite characters.
Same.
I just like everything about him. Just like, oh, I'm smart, and I rule a country, and I fuck with the Fantastic Four, and anyone else I really in the mood to fuck with.
I've stolen the powers from the Beyonders, from Galactus, from the Silver Surfer, from the Devil. Like, I'll just do whatever the fuck I want because nobody can stop me, right? But, no, the thing is, like, if you're going to have an Ironheart character from Iron Man lore, you cannot back up the character with another white Iron Man to sell the character.
This seems kind of antithetical. Just like,
Well,
we're trying to establish his character, so let's put another white guy in the Iron Man thing just in case. Gotta hedge our bets.
Same thing. Like when they brought Miles Morales to the mainstream Marvel universe, Peter Parker didn't hang up his tights. There were just 2 Spider-Men.
Oh,
3 if you count Gwen Stacy from an alternate universe, who is the Ghost Spider now, a.k.a. Spider-Gwen.
4 if you count Spider-Ham.
He does not have an ongoing series, so no.
I thought he did have I think it was a mini series earlier this year.
I just looked over on my bookshelf and I didn't realize I had this. I just found this. It's Freddy versus Jason versus Ash comic book.
Yes.
Kind of graphic novel, and I don't know where I got this, but I'm gonna read this. Sorry, just to be completely random, but
that's what the stream is. Like, this stream is nothing but a tangent. We're an hour and 10 minutes in. We got another 20, 30 minutes in us, depending on how long you're willing to stay, but...
I'm here for the long haul. I got D&D after this with a couple of people that live in Japan and Australia, so this is right on time for me.
Oh, perfect, yeah. Well, like I said, if you got to dip out, dip out, but usually we cut it at 12. There's no racket stream tonight, I don't think. Is there a racket stream? I haven't been on Twitter. I've been playing Magic because I'm a fucking nerd.
I have no idea.
I haven't seen that Rackets is streaming.
Fucking Hawaii. An asshole. We pay you for a show, goddammit. How are you going to go on vacation? But
I'm glad to see Rackets as big as he is. I
am too.
Was doing the Dick Show stuff. Because I'm a fan of the Dick Show. Like that's how I got into him, and I was at their very first chat, and now it's like, oh my god, you're pulling in like gym numbers.
Yeah, you got to limit yourself to reading 20s on the mark and save the rest for later. That is such a fucking alpha dick move, right?
I mean, he's kind of has to at this point. It's not like the earlier streams where like.
No, I know, but that's just like.
Donate, but it's.
Yeah, but that's just like such big dick energy, isn't it? Dr. Doom is one of the most powerful villains in Marvel. Danielle Griffin is so SMRT, smirk. Now Miles pals around with Miss Marvel and Ghost Spider. He used to be cooler, I agree. In Secret Wars, he kept a cheeseburger in his pocket, and that cheeseburger was 8 years and 8 weeks old.
Oh my god!
Well, it was cryogenically frozen for 8 years, so it was really only 8 weeks old. But he gets hungry, being Spider-Man.
So he just pulls a cheeseburger out of his pocket.
But
I will say though, the Spider-Gwen design is cool with like hood and shit.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, my kids, you have no fucking clue. My kids watch the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie at least 3 times a week, and that's at minimum.
Sounds like my buddy's kids.
I was kind of iffy on seeing it, but if you get the thumbs up, I'll check it out.
Absolutely, it's better than any Tom Holland Spider-Man movie that's come out.
Yeah.
I mean, any Spider-Man that's not Sam Raimi's Spider-Man does not have the Weeb stamp of approval.
It doesn't, no. And Spider-Man 2 by Raimi will forever be the best comic book movie ever made.
Oh, I love that movie so much. I've seen
Like-
it like at least 20 times.
Yeah, it's shit in comparison to some of the things they can accomplish with the MCU. But as far as being a comic book movie, bar none, it's better than any fucking Tim Burton Batman. It's better than any, Kristen Bale Batman. I forget the director on that because, I've had a few, but...
You better not shit on my Joel Schumacher Batman.
Okay,
Bat nipples? We're not shitting on bat nipples tonight?
What
about bat credit cards? Can we shit on that?
Bat credit card you can shit on as much as you want. That's dumb as shit.
I have to agree with you. I think the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man is, as far as like being a quote-unquote comic book movie with the super over-the-top Green Goblin and everything, probably as far as representing comics is probably a little bit better than the second one.
Well, getting Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin was probably one of the best casting choices I can think of.
Right. Like
100%.
Going the itsy bitsy spider, like when he's like, come on.
But
that's the greatest thing ever.
The thing that made the second Spider-Man movie the best comic book movie of all time is the suspension of disbelief when you have to believe that Spider-Man stopped a train by shooting webs out and holding the train back.
I thought you were going to say Doc Ock growing a miniature sun inside an old train depot and them having to put it out by sinking it in the Hudson. But
No, that's fine. I mean, that I did that last week as a science experiment for my kid. But no, to circle back around to manga for at least one more round of comparison and contrasting. Let me at least get the point that I was trying to make out. Like, as far as trying to get girls into comics as opposed to getting girls into manga, just looking over those old Hellsing books that I have today, occasionally, you'll have Alucard, and he'll look extremely effeminate, and he'll be acting giddy like a schoolgirl to a certain degree just from the art style and his dialogue. But he's still the most badass motherfucker in the universe of Hellsing. And I think that I can see the appeal for that in females where it doesn't dissuade males. And just to kind of back that up, obviously I'm a Magic the Gathering player. I've been playing for the better part of 20 years. And, I was around for the creation and inception of Yu-Gi-Oh! And one thing that I've always noticed about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cartoon, which I believe was an anime first, correct?
Well, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cartoon is technically an anime.
That's what I'm saying. I believe it was an anime. Like, it was Japanese and translated.
Japan first. It's kind of like what they did with Pokemon. They saw how big it was in Japan. They said, well, let's just make it an English dub, call it a cartoon over there, and it'll catch on a lot easier than calling it an anime.
Right. And one of the things about that is that you have Yugi and Kaiba that are both very effeminate men.
Oh, God, yeah.
If anybody ever threatens to send me to the Shadow Realm, I'm just going to start laughing at them because I can't imagine someone without the spiky 80s girl hair doing it. But that's the thing. Like, I feel like the characters are designed to appeal to both genders. And if the story's good enough, someone that's a fan of the genre is going to keep reading regardless of what the art looks like. I ran my first critical poll of comic books, and 75% of the people that replied said that the story is the most important part, second to art, over art. So even if the art's not great or if the art's not your necessary cup of tea, you will put up with the book if the story is good. So as a male, there were certain parts of Hellsing that I was like, well, that's just kind of weird. Why does the most badass motherfucker in this universe look like a giddy schoolgirl right here? But I kept reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and that's common in anime too, like those extreme or maybe in manga, like those extreme like emotional facial expressions, right?
Mhm.
But if you do the same thing in America, like take Iceman for example, we talked about X-Men '92, so Iceman was kind of a big part of X-Men '92, the X-Men animated series, I should say. Iceman was a big part of that. But when you were introduced to Iceman in 2018, he was reintroduced as a gay character who was outed by
Oh.
Jean Grey.
Well, he wasn't
Way to go,
outed.
Jean Grey.
She like used her telepathy to like convince him he was gay, wasn't it?
Something like that. Well, she didn't convince him, but he was thinking about being gay, apparently. That was the storyline.
He was thinking about, giving it a taste.
Mhm.
Maybe a little like mustard and relish on it,
I'm so glad I fired you earlier. But the thing about it is, like, even though they had they had these characters that were, you had Miss Marvel, who was a Muslim teenager, and she was an Inhuman, so whatever. And her favorite character was Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, for whatever reason, because they were trying to ship Carol Danvers so bad. Then you make Carol Danvers the biggest hero in the universe, the most powerful character, whatever. Which, fuck all that, not true.
Press X the doubt.
Well, another thing too is a lot of like manga and anime and characters like that they look very androgynous.
Right.
So it's like there's a lot of times like running jokes, like a trope where you don't know whether or not a guy is a girl or a girl is a guy until some sort of like, oh no, I walked in on you and oh, that's definitely a penis.
Right.
And that's really good too, because like until they tell you, you're like, oh wow, this is like a really strong chick, or oh, this is a really cool dude. Oh, it's kind of like with Samus. Everyone thought Samus was a dude, and then when it's like, oh no, Samus is a girl. Okay, fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like I didn't care at that point.
No, because she was an established character.
Mm-hmm.
And has the cool suit.
Yeah, the cool suit helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, she's a hottie outside of the suit, so that also helps.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
But Samus is definitely waifu material.
Hands down.
There are pillows out there, I'm sure. If there aren't, that's a crime.
I wouldn't know about anything about pillows. Not at all.
Okay.
I don't know if I don't know if I can go down that road in this conversation. I haven't had enough to drink yet.
That sounds like a personal problem. We're on the level.
Yeah, I'm like 3 drinks in.
As am I.
I'm 3 beers in.
Yeah, that doesn't count. Don't be a pussy.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't.
That's like a quarter of a drink. You gotta put those numbers up.
Actually, Ayrton, be a pussy. Take a pounding. But the thing is, like I said, DC superhero girls. My 2 children like DC superhero girls, but it's not something that's going to draw in a female that actually makes money and buys comic books for herself. I'll buy the shit for my little girls, but if you're 13, DC superhero girls, what the fuck is that? You might buy the figures as collectibles just to display. You may even check out the show once or twice, but once you realize it's designed for little kids, you're done. So the thing is that I think that manga has designed a way to organically capture both audiences in a way that I don't know that comics can mimic. The way that, without creating new characters, without, and I'll even have to give it to a fucking SJW, because Valiant Comics, they used to be one of the most badass publishers on the planet back in the 90s. They did a very small scale shared universe publishing thing. and you had characters that shared the same universe, and you would have crossovers and stories and things like that. But they introduced a character. She was a larger female character named Faith, and her superhero name was Zephyr, and I think her superpower is just like hovering a few feet off the ground.
I mean, that could be deadly though. If she hovers a few feet and it just drops on, you're gone.
I wasn't going to go there, but
well, I mean, I'm a pretty hefty guy too. So if that was my power, that's exactly what would be my power move.
absolutely, just land on top of them. What you going to do from here, son? But no, I read the first volume of Faith, and it wasn't my cup of tea. But I could see the appeal of the story, and I could see where it appealed to, female empowerment, and it might even grab that demographic. But the thing is, like, I'm not 8 foot tall. I don't have like 3,000 pounds of muscle in my torso with a skinny waist and football player legs. But I still read male-influenced comic books where they're drawn like that. Like, I don't have any kind of body dysmorphia where I feel like I'm inferior because I don't look like Captain America.
Yeah, I don't have claws that come out of my hand,
So-
matter how much I wish I did.
When we see all this hatred for like J. Scott Campbell and all these artists that draw women the way they do, that's just the way that American comics have evolved. And case in point, Mrs. Church, one of her favorite comics that she's recently purchased was She-Hulk, Savage She-Hulk #1. Back in the day when She-Hulk was sexy but huge and not like a monstrosity.
My kind of lady, though.
My namesake Failure is into the muscular women, so that's right up his alley. But
Of course, Failure. That would be his jam.
But not the docs his fetish, but that's the docs of his fetish. But She-Hulk.
My fetish has been doxed on here numerous times.
Someone that'll go home with you after you've had 3 Guinnesses.
3. Come on, novel bro, back me up on this one.
No, I mean if they can still stand you after 3 Guinnesses, it might take you 5 to take them home at that point.
That's fair. No, I was talking the hair color of the girl saying my name on our background.
Oh, okay. Oh, the redhead thing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, and the orange hair. Fire in the soul, fire in the eyes.
Yep. That's
But,
right. I like that bit of adrenaline rush. Like, okay, are you going to stab me or am I going to get a blowjob?
Well,
I'm
I mean,
not sure which.
yeah, you never know
Maybe
because they
both.
are soulless.
Yeah, maybe both.
The only redhead that I know with a soul is Danielle, so. But in any event, no, I feel like that manga, like, I think that Racket Discord had it correct. And they said that, comic books aren't being hurt by manga right now. The cast has basically been set. I think that, the quality of manga, the consistency of manga, and as long as it doesn't turn as, social justicey as some animes have with their mistranslations, like, if I ever see a fucking Gamergate reference in a manga, I'm going to riot.
I think the only time you'll see that is if, like, what Funimation did with. There's one anime called Kobayashi-san, and it, like in the Japanese one, they make a comment about, oh, you changed your clothes, and she goes, yeah, tired of, pretty much breaking men's necks. And then in the English, they're like, oh, I'm doing my part to fight the patriarchy. It's like, I don't want to fucking hear that. That's why, like, I watch these shows because it's hasn't been corrupted yet. Don't Don't add your own personal flair. Just translate it how it's supposed to be. And I think if you see anything like that, either it's a Western artist or Western people trying to write in the style of manga
Right.
and then trying to ship it over to Japan, but shit like that doesn't really sell. Like Japan, I think recently passed a law that said, hey, if you want to be trans, you got to get sterilized first. Like if you want to do the reassignment surgery, you can't have kids.
Yeah.
So like the only time you'll ever see really SJW shit like that if it's pretty much primarily for an American audience first, and then trying to tap into the Japan market.
Right. Well, and that's that's kind of what I was referring to, because there was even an anime with a Gamergate like direct message. That might have been what you were talking about with Kobayashi, but I don't think that we'll get that from just the manga side of it, because from what I understand, a lot of manga is translated in Japan. Correct? It's not going through an American company to become translated.
Yeah, a lot of it they actually have people translate it over there into English and then send it out. Like I believe that's what Yen Press does. They do a lot of like light novel and manga stuff. But there's sometimes where if it's a primarily Japanese only thing and an American company really wants to get that in there, they'll buy the translation rights for themselves.
Right. Well, and as kind of a thought there, like over here we have American companies that are in charge of dubbing Japanese animation based on licensing right, and I think that if Japan, Toei especially, and this is really has nothing to do with my bias against Funimation because of the whole Kick Vic bullshit. I have to preface that, like, fuck all those guys first and foremost, and fuck Funimation because of that stuff. But I don't see why Toei would even need to license someone to do that when they could basically perform the same process that they do with their manga, with their anime. And the only thing that I can think of that I've heard in any legitimate interview is because of mouth movements and things of that nature. And, American voice actors are just better at queuing up that dialogue and making it sync a little better based on inflection and accent and things of that nature. But at the same time, like, people still watch subtitled Godzilla movies. A lot of people that hate these voice actors are going back to watching subs.
I've always been a sub versus dub. Like if it's a Japanese or a foreign language product, I have to watch it with the English subtitles because that's a lot better kind of what the scene or what the thing I'm reading is supposed to come from. It's not like, oh well, we're gonna dub it, and kind of like the old Japanese Godzilla dubs where their mouth will continue moving for 3 to 5 seconds after the English guy said this line. And as a kid, that was hilarious. I'm like, I love it. But it's like, I'd rather read it and be like, okay, that's what they're saying, instead of being like, oh my God, Godzilla's over there. 5 seconds later, yes, I agree.
I don't know. I still love the old dubbed Godzilla movies.
Oh, I mean, they're still gold. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's I don't know. Personally, I've always liked to read because I've got really bad hearing. The army kind of really messed my stuff up. So for me, it's easier to even just to like read closed captioning for that. So I've got a bias towards sub over dub because it's like I'd rather just read it. I'll watch it. I can do both, and it feels more organic to what the story's kind of what they're supposed to get across.
Right.
Sorry if I'm rambling.
Oh no, that's pretty much all we do.
Yeah, you've seen our show.
Yeah, if it wasn't for tangents, we wouldn't be here. We would have hung
20 minutes long if we didn't have these tangents.
I tried to do it by myself without talking to anyone else, and as soon as I realized that I couldn't do it because I got to have somebody to bounce off of and just roll with it while I get drunk. Because I can run the OBS and get drunk and comment occasionally, but just carrying the show that's beyond me.
So now, I need to know those anime chicks.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Is it the anime that makes them weird like that, or are they already weird and they get attracted to the anime because of it? Nature versus nurture sort of argument here, I guess.
I think that could be it. I think like I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it, but I mean it's
the way with the word "cuck" in it.
I think more of it's like they're designed weird, or like they come off really weird, and you kind of get drawn in because most of them are drawn fairly sexy, at least in my degenerate opinion. And I'm like, they could be the most off the ball character, but so long as they're pleasing the eyes, you could do whatever you want with them. Just keep the fan service coming, please.
Right.
Fair enough.
I don't think that there's I don't think there's anything necessarily any more fan servicey about the manga than there is the comics. I think the fans are just two different markets. And I think that manga and anime have done a much better job of coalescing that audience.
Definitely.
I think that comic books kind of missed the mark when they started to become less and less relevant over the years. And after the 90s boom, when trading cards died out as a thing, when you stopped getting Saturday morning cartoons as a regular thing, I sit down and I watch some of the shit they put out for kids in this generation, and I'm like, I would have fucking sunsetted myself if this is the cartoons that I had to watch on my Saturday mornings after I got out of school. Are you fucking kidding me?
I grew up watching like He-Man, Transformers, like Thundercats, Ghostbusters, Batman the Animated Series,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Street Sharks, Gargoyles,
X-Men.
They were all drawn in their own unique style. They were really good. Like, I could go back and watch Batman the Animated Series as an adult and love it just as much as I did as a kid. But these modern cartoons, they're all drawn fairly similar. The storylines just, they're not interesting to me.
They're all digital copy pastas. Like, literally, it's just somebody that learned how to take a character in Illustrator and Flash illustrate it. Or in Flash animate it.
What do you mean? Flash is dead. Don't you follow Homestar Runner?
Get out. Done with you.
They literally made a whole cartoon about Flash dying.
Well, I mean, they made a whole comic book series too. It's called Crisis on Infinite Earths, and he was dead for 18 years. Go kiss my ass. But no, I think that comic books have lost that cohesion, because that is another thing that I think that really promotes the market, especially to women, is that if there's an anime and you watch the anime, like, one of the big controversies with Vic Mignogna is that he won't sign like shipped art, so to speak. If you do some Elric Brothers, gay art, he won't sign it. He won't sign Broly blowing Edwin. But
I mean, I don't see the issue there.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like,
from seeing these characters in the anime, I can see where females would be more inclined to pick up a comic book or a manga in this case, based on those things. I think that DC and Marvel have kind of lost the plot, and that most of the smaller publishers just don't make enough money to go there. But I feel like comic books were more successful back in the day when, toy companies were coming to them and saying, okay, well, you got to write an event with all your superheroes called Secret Wars so we can make toys for it. Oh, well, this Ninja Turtle idea you've got, we're going to put a toy line out, but before we put the toy line out, we're going to make a cartoon show to get people interested in toys. Like, there was just more cohesion between the brands back then, and that's why these properties succeeded. I mean, X-Men was shit before they made a TV show for it, and then it blew the fuck up. after X-Men the Animated Series ran, that's when Age of Apocalypse happened. That's when the Messiah Complex happened. That's when Claremont Claremont was before the animated series, I'll say. But that's when his runs became what was known as the definitive X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've watched the Hellsing anime. I've read the manga. They're basically identical. You know,
I mean,
there's... Go ahead.
You get a few times where, like, they'll do, like, original video content where it doesn't come from that. But a lot of times it feels like, oh, well, it feels like it could have come from that. And that, like, there's a lot of animes that like to do it where they'll adapt something and then they'll either blow through it too quick or the original source material is just taking forever. So they write stories, but they try to be as faithful as possible to the storyline. So it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm watching one scene where Superman's fighting Batman, and then there's a cliffhanger. So let's just do a thing where Flash and Superman are playing hyperspeed poker. Like, okay, that was fucking dumb. Where did that happen? It goes, oh no, let's do a flashback about why these guys are fighting. Let's dedicate a whole episode to that. Okay. New material came out. There we go. Boom.
Yeah.
Decent segue. It's not so jarring.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like with the manga and anime, like the main differences that I could see, at least between Hellsing, Dragon Ball Z was a whole completely different nut. Because Dragon Ball Z was so bastardized by the time it got to America under subs. If you watch dubbed Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, it's almost a completely different experience.
Especially if you watch it from Japanese to English, because what they did was they kept the kid voice for Goku and just ran with it for the entire run.
Yeah.
So you'd be watching like Goku fighting Cell or Frieza, and it's like, why is young Goku talking to me? I don't like this. But like the English, it's like, okay, that's definitely a masculine voice. That I can picture that being Goku, not
right.
Goku's kid wearing a Goku suit.
Well, still though, it's still a completely different experience as far as just the storytelling goes, because there's not as much exposition. There's not as much, I don't know, just filler dialogue. But yeah, that's just one of the ones that I have an idea of. I've never seen Hellsing dub or
if you watch Dragon Ball Z uncensored too, like holy shit.
Well,
there's dicks flopping around. There's blood everywhere. There's tits.
Most people don't realize that. Oh shit! Sorry, I just got a. Oh, nice! I have to make a. I'll show that to you guys after the show. Sorry. Got a DM that was beautiful. Somebody sent me a piece of art. It's gorgeous.
Nice.
Shout out. Good job, Rob. But anyway, no, that's the thing.
Rob's a good guy.
I've never seen, Hellsing subbed. I've never seen the Slayers subbed. The only one that I really have that comparison to is Dragon Ball, but I assume that it's different everywhere. But with the manga between Hellsing and the anime, I could see where there were parts where you got more exposition. Oh, Hellsing Ultimate's a completely different ballgame novel, bro. I enjoyed Hellsing Ultimate, but it was definitely a fuck your mother version. They're like, all the fucks we gave in the other series, they're gone. No more fucks to give. We're out here robbing people, killing people, in the streets, working hard. But I think that that's one of the main things that I can take away from this conversation is that comic books just missed the mark on capitalizing on their medium and their, transcendence from that medium. Because nowadays it seems like people are just putting out comic books as their movie pitches. It's not about making a good story that correlates from one medium to the next. It's about making a story that you can sell a TV series that will be nothing like the story that the fans loved. If anybody saw Preacher and then read Preacher, you'd understand what I'm talking about. Chirp, chirp, chirp.
Sorry, somebody said good job. Rob does very interesting work. I love his work. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, yes. He put up a drawing of the church earlier, and he messaged me, and he was like, "If you don't want me to message this, I won't." That's just kind of what I came up with. I was like, "Dude, it's awesome. I wish I looked like that."
I got really drunk, and I had like a really terrible like night terror, and I just PM'd him. I'm like, "Hey, would you be down to draw this?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." Like a couple hours later, I'm like, "This is too accurate to what I liquor dreamed."
Well,
Alcohol-induced dreaming. Those are always interesting.
Oh yeah.
we're trying not to talk about that. I have to go to sleep soon. But
Hellsing. I watched I believe I watched like an episode or two of the Hellsing sub, and it's not bad.
no, it's a good series. I definitely, and there were two different Hellsing series. There was Hellsing, and then there was Hellsing Ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were two manga series. There was Hellsing and there was Hellsing Ultimate. And that's, again, something that, like, I feel like we just don't get from comic books because obviously you don't have the money for most of them. I get that. But there was definitely a partnership to be had from a comic creator like Marvel or DC and an animation studio. But that was all kind of squashed when the 90s boom happened, and I mean, comic books just kind of became their own entity to a certain degree in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And then by the time the 70s and 80s collector market opened up, it made way for the 90s collectors boom to destroy the industry. And now in the mid 2000s, we're fucking hiring Zoe Quinn to write at Marvel and DC, and we're hiring James Gunn to direct for both of them. And I'm just in a situation where I'm like, do you just really not want fans' money? Like, do you just want the people that don't spend money on the clap for you, while the people that do spend money on it to just stop?
I think one of the directions they took that I think failed, in my opinion, the more live action shows they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just make it a cartoon so you can do more. Show us more. We don't have to watch.
You can do more cheaper.
Yeah, but you could probably do it cheaper, and you'll get people that actually want to watch it. Or you can mark, like, if you made it like before the Shazam movie came out, do a short run Shazam cartoon, for example. That would get more people wanting to see it, and people that don't know the character, like, I'll watch like a 30-minute cartoon. Oh, I kind of like Billy Batson. Let's go check the movie out.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll read the comics, just like kind of like what you said with like X-Men and Spider-Man and all that stuff in the 90s with the cartoons. If I had the money back then to buy comics, I would have. I know for a fact I would have. But
and the Justice League cartoon movie that came out a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The one where Batman stole Green Lantern's ring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great movie.
And Green Lantern's voiced by Nathan Fillion, which is great.
Yeah.
Like 1,000 times better than the Justice League movie that came out.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
You think about the direct correlation between an anime and a manga. I mean, Attack on Titan, the anime. What's the name of the manga? Oh, Attack on Titan. It's the same property. But why do they not take the Avengers movie and at the end of that movie, or at everybody that shows up to the theater, or package a DVD with a fucking comic book? Why are you not pushing, or trying to at least cross-promote from one to the other? You see movie ads in comics all the fucking time. They don't
Yeah.
give a shit about the print medium to the larger audience.
Right.
The more you can do to tie it in, the more you'll get people that will be interested. Like back when the Pokemon movie came out, you go to the theater, they gave you a special card.
Mhm.
Now
Oh,
you
yeah.
want to buy the cards.
Right. Well, now I've got one. I need 59 more, and I can play the game, right?
Yeah, I've got this really cool card that's written in gobbledygook language, but
Mhm.
now I want to get regular cards because I like the art style.
Right. And also, I'm assuming that anime also doesn't reboot their universes every 7 years.
Yeah.
No, not
Well,
really. I mean, like they'll do like a whole new arc, like or they'll time leap it, but it
Yeah.
still feels it doesn't feel like, oh, we're getting a whole reboot of the universe. Naruto's a little bit different though, because you get Naruto and then Boruto, which is just like, okay, they were definitely rebooting the universe under Naruto's kid, but it's not that jarring as like, oh, we're just gonna reboot the whole universe. Call
Didn't they do
this one
that?
Universe 685 and go from there.
Didn't they do that with Avatar? When they
Uh,
gave you like the new Airbender after Aang was all grown up.
Oh yeah, you got Korra, the new Avatar, and then
Yeah.
but it was set forward in time.
Yeah.
It's still like, oh, I could go watch that show, and then, oh, this is like 70 years later. All right, I dig it. It makes sense why things are different. But it's not like, oh, we're just gonna hit the rewind button and then just say this is in one of the other multiverses.
Well,
I don't know. I'm not. Again, comics aren't my forte, so I could be talking right out of my ass. But
well, we've got about 10 minutes left in the show duration here, so I'll posit a final question to you guys, and we'll BTFO the fuck out of here. But my final question, and this is something that I'd like you to consider with a little limited comic knowledge, and Ayrton, the same for you. If, like, say, I mean, you know how they do like graphic novels and trade paperbacks of like 5 and 6 issues of a particular book, right?
mm-hmm.
What if they took those same products, and DC kind of already does this, they do their deluxe editions, and it's black and white, non-colored, newsprint, bound, and it's like 1,000 pages almost. But if they did it on a smaller level, like Archie does for their digest versions, and thank you for... I forget who mentioned it with digest earlier, but I did notice, and I do appreciate you correcting me. But the digest version, like...
Knox said it.
Correct. Thank you, Knox. But say you take 6 to 8 issues of a comic book in a ongoing arc, like they take Batman 1 through 6 or 1 through 8. They print it in a black and white digest version instead of doing, well, even on top of doing a trade. I think that might appeal to a manga crowd, or do you think the ship sailed on, trying to encapsulate the readership to these properties?
I think that would be like a more palatable way. I mean, because this way, instead of having to go find 6 different issues, you have one book, a whole storyline. I can read it from cover to cover, and then if I wanted to continue on, I could.
The reason I put it like that is they already do something like that called a trade paperback. The Walking Dead is probably the most popular comic book in that format, and there are like 30 or 40 volumes of it. And all of the covers interconnect if they're front-facing. And they look really good on a shelf, but I'm asking, like, if you make a digest size or a manga-sized version of these same books, first off, would the formatting hold up? Because my initial problem with that would be that a lot of the lettering would be too small if you shrank the page size. So
you could just cut the pages in half.
Yeah, just maybe or just make it a little bit more palatable chunks.
Yeah,
on each page.
But
I mean,
if you strip the color, if you strip the color, save money on printing. You put it on newsprint, which is essentially what most mangas seem to be printed on. I mean, it's not the highest quality paper stock I've ever felt. um, but you strip the color to lower printing cost. You print it on newsprint. You bind it together at 100-page chunks or more. What do you think that basically, do you think that would entice a manga audience to read more comics, or do you think that manga audiences would just read them as mangas and really ignore the comic books themselves? Because the backbone of the comic industry is selling the single issue. I mean, no bones about it. To sell 20 pages for $5 is where they make their money.
I mean, there's the manga reading audience is so diverse in their habits. I couldn't really speak for everyone as a whole, but I know there's a lot of people like me that I would probably get into comics more if that was the case.
Right.
Because it would feel kind of like reading like a manga or something similar like that, where I could really dig into it, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but
don't apologize, man. You're good.
I would enjoy it. I would probably get into more comics if I had something kind of like that, like kind of small, just a different kind of feel to it. It wouldn't. I don't know. I'd like it. I would probably get into more comics if that was more prevalent.
Right, and I think the consistent sizing and consistent branding, the thicker binding, even because the binding on a trade is, I don't know, what would you say, about 3/4 of an inch, or not a trade, a manga. The binding on a manga is about 3/4 of an inch wide, and it's enough to put a title on and be able to easily be seen from a shelf. I even remember when DC did their manga run. There was manga Batman for a little while. They even did anime stuff for Marvel, but it just didn't seem to pick up. And I'm wondering if it's just because they were trying too hard to mimic the style, or if it was, just like I said before, the ship just sailed. Because most of your comics fans that switched over to manga did so a decade ago, and did so not because the industry was going to shit, but because the consistency and the quality of the product.
I think for a lot of people, the ship probably has sailed, but I think if they did more like that, and it wasn't kind of a more time, like you gave more people a chance enough time to get into it, right. I think you could probably get some of those people that jump ship back. But,
well, I mean, that is one of the detriments to Marvel and DC, is they make most of their decisions off of first quarter practices. They don't let any new product have enough time to actually stand up on its own merit. They see that, oh, well, this brand new thing that if we had given up on this show after 2 episodes of not having any viewers at the live show, then, we would still be, we wouldn't be here, but there's no way that we would have, 9, 10 concurrent viewers on a bullshit late show, right? Everybody's going off these first quarter numbers, and they're like, okay, well, it didn't sell well, even though we didn't advertise it, and we didn't even try to market it. It didn't do well, so fuck it. And I feel like that's kind of where the flaw takes place, and that's kind of where the blame lies, in the fact that they can't recapture that readership, because for the foreseeable future, manga's not going anywhere. And there's just going to be more and more and more accessibility to it. And comic books are becoming more and more inaccessible. And the ones that are accessible, that are outside of like the Comicsgate, indie comics scene, are garbage for the most part. Like, not everything is. And I touched on this like a couple of times last week, but I've read a couple of Marvel and DC books recently that were fantastic. But as a comics fan, I've just been burned. Like, there's no way that I'll be buying every new #1 to try out every series that comes from Marvel and DC again, because most of them are shit. Hickman's X-Men's pretty great. DC's just shaping up pretty well. There's some titles that are good, but why am I going to take the chance on a $5 book when I can spend? Let me look here. MSRP $9.99 for 180, 200 pages, including bonus material in the back on one of these Tokyo Pop mangas.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most I ever paid for a manga was like $14.99. I'm sure there are more expensive ones out there, but
Mm-hmm.
$15, the same that I would spend on 60 pages of comic book, getting 200 pages of story, and I'm getting the same consistency that I got on the last 200 pages of story of the series that I bought.
I mean, like that. The big success of light novels is you get like 200 pages for like $12-13,
Right.
and it's like I'd gladly pay $14 and get something that's kind of a dud, but I gave it. There was 200 pages of a dud that I could have liked it.
Right. I mean, it may have picked up after the first 50 pages.
Yeah, the first book could have been crap, but then you pick up the second book and you're like, okay, I'm starting to like these guys now, because I've got a lot more room and a lot more padding to get to like these guys.
Right, but for triple the price of what you're paying for an American comic book, you're getting 10 times the material.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the clutch of it. I think the price as a barrier to entry. I think the lack of quality and consistency is not helping. And I feel like that just because the transcendence of the brand, the ability for a light novel to turn into a manga, to turn into an anime, and maintain,
The same level of goodness from
right,
one to the other.
Yeah, to maintain that consistency and quality across the board, and to essentially tell the same story 3 different ways without any real fluctuation. I think that because you can't even say that for the Marvel movies. I mean, you saw Civil War?
Yeah, I've seen all the Marvel movies except for Captain Marvel.
You're a good man. I haven't seen that one either. But Civil War, absolutely nothing like the comic book. Most Marvel movies are nothing like the comic book. So there's no brand consistency there. So why, once I realize that, if I'm going to read Civil War, I'm going to watch Civil War to decide whether I want to read it, and then I pick up the book, and I see the Punisher beating the shit out of Captain America in the middle of it. Like, what the fuck? This never happened in the movie. This isn't what I thought I was getting.
Didn't Captain America get shot like on the steps of something? Like, wasn't the whole thing with the superhero registration act or something?
He turned himself in at the end, and that was the death of Captain America the first time. He turned himself in, and Crossbones killed him.
Oh, okay. Because like I have the Marvel Encyclopedia and the DC Encyclopedia. So before I went to see those movies, I was kind of reading up on Civil War, and I'm like, oh, this would be badass. I'm in. And then I saw it, I'm like, I wish it would have been more like what they wrote.
Right. Cyborg Thor murdering like Goliath. Bill Foster, who was in Ant-Man, give that to him, but shoehorning Spider-Man in there, but not having him have the crisis of consciousness of revealing his identity, leading to one more day. I mean, there were just so many good plot points that could have led to future films and future conflicts that they just avoided. Like, Tony wants to put a suit of armor around the planet. What the fuck?
They could have made a whole arc, like of 3 or 4 movies, doing that, and would have done great instead of trying to shoehorn it all into one Captain America movie, and then
for the eventual payoff,
the next Avengers.
Yeah, for the eventual payoff of Thanos: The Infinity Wars. Good movie. Don't get me wrong, but the payoff of probably one of the most prolific events in comics history of Civil War was Thanos, which happened 20 years before that book ever thought about coming out. So, no consistency. A movie fan
And
is going to quickly
Thanos
realize
has
they don't care about the comics. What was that?
Yep.
I said, and back then Thanos had the Thanos copter.
That is correct.
The Thanos copter.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to
right.
look into that.
It's wonderful.
It's like giving a superhero a Zeppelin. As soon as I'm in. Like, you give them some sort of air travel that's ridiculous, and I will immediately be in.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like one of those bubble helicopters that seats like 2 people, and it says Thanos on the tail.
Oh, I love it.
Tail end of it.
I love it already.
Not to break anything up, but I do think that we are pushing over budget. I will express my gratitude to the chat. Ask you guys to hold on until we end the stream, and I will depart with you guys personally off air. But everybody that stopped in, Novel Bro, Danielle, Matt Christie, Atomic Denny, Cartoon, Knox, anybody
Captain
I'm missing? Captain Weeb is on stream with us. I'm gonna say goodbye to him later. But I definitely appreciate everybody. If I missed you, I apologize. But thank everybody for coming in, hooking us up in the chat, throwing some likes. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. All that good stuff. We've got some shill links down in the bottom. Check those out. And we will catch you guys tomorrow, where we, at this point, I think we'll be doing This Week in Comics. Just talking about some new books out this week. Talking about some news and reviews. And, just generally having a good time like we like to do. So,
right.
thanks everybody for coming out. And thank you to my guest for being here with me.
Thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Oh, man. That's what we aim for. We're glad to hear it. Matt Christie says his name was Robert Paulson. Matt Christie. But anyway, I think that'll be it for the evening, guys. Thanks for coming out, and we definitely appreciate it. Ayrton, you wanna say your thing before I end the stream?
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Have a good one, guys.